Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Junk Be Gone studios for the Sports Source. I haven't seen you since the new year, so Happy New Year. And what a great start to the new year for Tennessee football and basketball fans. Big win over Ole Miss last night in hoops. Big win over Iowa in the Citrus Bowl on New Year's Day. We're going to break them both down with a full cast of characters. Now, we are starting what will be our 22nd year of doing the Sports Source, and that's all due to you. We thank you for that, and in return, we try and bring you a show like none other. So you're going to get 90 minutes. Nobody else does that. You're going to get 9 different opinions today. Nobody else does that either. So appreciate you being here. We try and do our best to keep you informed and entertained, and here's how we're going to do it today. Let me show you what's on the show. First, takeaways from the Vol victory yesterday over Ole Miss. Best and worst things about Tennessee hoops right now. What are the things that they either have to keep doing or have to fix if this team's going to make a Final Four run? We'll talk bracketology. Yes, it's early, but we know you're looking. Bracketology, we'll do a scouting report of who they got next. And then, the Nico hype train takeoff. That was down in Orlando. We'll talk Nico. Playoff expectations for 2024? Somebody thinks so. Was this still a disappointing season? That was the take about a month ago. Has that viewpoint changed? 25 years since the national title. We'll talk with Will Overstreet about what's taken part since and where it's going. Game predictions. We've got a little basketball Cavaliers line. And then, of course, we're going to get your take on Nico Iamaleava as well. This first segment of our program is brought to you by Junk Be Gone. The holidays are over. Time to get rid of the boxes, the bags of ripped up wrapping paper. Might need to have that Christmas tree hauled away. Or just some old thing that's been replaced by a new thing this Christmas. You need to get that stuff out of there. Junk Be Gone has a New Year's special going on all month long on driveway dumpsters. Give them a shout this week. Visit them at junkbegone.biz. All right, let's welcome in the first wave of panelists. And believe me, we got a whole other cast sitting in the wings waiting to get on here. Right down here we have Josh Ward. We have right here former Vol assistant basketball coach, former D1 basketball player at Milwaukee, Mark Pankratz. Back with us again, Isaiah Victor. You know, you see him on our show every week anyway because he's right back here behind me. But Isaiah Victor, of course, former Vol basketball player. Thanks for coming back in. Right down there, Chuck Cavaliers, longtime member of this panel as well. All right. As we usually do, let's just jump right in, and I'm going to start with you, Mark Pankratz. What were your biggest takeaways from yesterday's 90-64 thumping of a previously unbeaten Ole Miss team?
Well, I love the way that we played offensively. Barnes has shown to continue to adapt his offensive style a little bit. He went a lot of center ball screens, and when you do a center ball screen and you put shooters around, even when you're not shooting, the spacing of the floor becomes really challenging for defenses to cover. And we kept going to that. Adu was active in his ball screens, dove hard, got a lot of his looks out of that, out of diving on the rolls on ball screens. But those shooters and the way our offense played, didn't get a lot of points in transition, but it was our half-court ball screen offense that was the difference.
Big takeaways?
Yeah, I saw the same thing, and I think that's him adapting to Ziegler because he's the New York City point guard, and he can get downhill and make a good decision. You got the shooters all around, so like Mark said, you can open up the offense that way. I do want to see us get more transition points, but it didn't matter yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss comes in 13-0, and when you get your best big, Adu, going off like that, 24-10, and then Ziegler after the game saying, "I am officially back," then you get those two going. And the one that impresses me that people need to start talking about is Jemai Meshack. Yeah. I mean, look at how he's shooting the ball, and that wasn't his strong
corner in the half.
Tennessee, after all their woes, 1 for 10 on threes, hit their last 4. And Meshack, those two were huge.
Yeah. Started 1 of 10 from three-point range, wound up 11 of 30. That's a good way to finish up. Josh, your biggest takeaway from yesterday?
Yeah, Zakai's hit outside shots recently, not just against Ole Miss. I would say the physicality, what Chris Beard is saying about Rick Barnes' team after the game is what Rick Barnes wants to hear about his team. The 19 offensive rebounds, the second chance opportunities, other teams that won't be as easy against probably as SEC play goes along, but Tennessee played the way Rick Barnes is going to expect his team to play. to have their best chance to win in February and March.
And what Josh was referring to, Chris Beard, Ole Miss coach, had this to say last night. They have experience, size, great point guard play. They have an identity. That's their defense and rebounding. Offensively, they just have a lot of weapons. They can play a lot of different ways, so really, really impressed with them. He said they're a Final Four caliber team. Mark.
Well, and the weapons. So, look, Connect was playing really well, and we talked about it. They would go ISO sometimes with Connect. What you realize when you start playing really talented teams, the Purdue's, the Kansas, the North Carolinas, doesn't work as well. But now what you're seeing offensively in that ball screen offense and the way that these guys are moving the basketball, you saw all the assists last night.
25 assists yesterday.
I mean, that way that ball moves with guys not having to pound it. You see in college and NBA basketball these days, they pound the air out of the ball. That becomes really easy for teams to defend. We move the ball so well out of our offense, and if we're making even 40% of our threes, we got a chance to get to that potential Final Four run.
We'll talk about shooting a little later because statistically it's almost identical to last year, but their scoring is up. So we'll discuss that a little bit later in the show. But let's get back to Zakai Ziegler for a second.
Yeah.
As of, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think we would still say, well, he's getting his legs back. He's still not that guy. Yesterday, you mentioned Adu with a double-double, 24 and 10. Ziegler with a double-double, 17 points, 10 assists. He also got 5 rebounds. You mentioned Ziegler to start, Isaiah. Did you ever go through a knee injury like that in your career? Did you ever have a serious?
Not in my career, but I actually just went through one a few months ago. Unfortunately, yeah.
Are you back to normal yet?
I'm not back to normal, no.
It's easier to recover when you're in your 20s.
Yeah, and you got UT's medical staff, so it helps a lot too.
But talk to me about Ziegler and just the improvement you've seen in him since the start of the year.
He's got to get his legs back from under him. Anytime you're away from the game for any reason, you're not going to have the same rhythm. You're not going to have the same feel for the game. So him saying he's back, I bet he felt the way he used to feel.
Right.
And so that worked good for his confidence.
I mean, and that's an ACL injury, and it was at the end of February. What was it, February 28th?
Yeah, it was the end of the year.
And to be back in 9 months, he was working 4 or 5 hours a day. They were having to try and kick him out of the training room because he was working so hard to get back. I mean, you can't help but pull for a guy like that. And Dane Bradshaw was saying he thinks Ziegler is the most beloved Tennessee basketball player since Chris Lofton. That's a pretty strong statement.
Or Dane Bradshaw.
One thing that I would love, and maybe when y'all talk to Barnes in the media this week, is ask why you still only played 8 guys.
Yeah.
We're up 25 points, 30 points almost, with 4, 5, 6 minutes left in the game. And we play 8 guys. We're talking about Ziegler's injury. We talked about Adu's injury. We talked about Connect's injury. Josiah's had a history of injuries. Why are we playing guys up 25 points with 3 minutes left in the game? And we got to develop young guys. So I agree, Zakai's getting his legs back. He's playing really good, and I'm not being Debbie Downer on it, but we gotta protect him because he is playing at an elite level. When he's playing at an elite level, this team becomes an elite team.
Let me, I forgot to do this earlier. Let me quickly put in the box score for you, and then we'll go to the shot charts. Just a little information here for you if you want to see it. Josh, one thing we discussed earlier this year, well, we discussed it all off season and during last season, Rick Barnes and his offense. And it was just mind-numbingly painful to watch last year. It had gotten that way over the last couple of years. And we asked, is this just the way he wants to play now, or is this he knows what he's got, and it's his only chance to win is to play this way? So far this season, he has changed the way they open things up on offense. I think that question has now been put to bed.
Well, the assist numbers from last night we've seen in a number of games this season. Zakai playing the way he is helps with that. Josiah seems more willing maybe to attack at times, and I think that creates opportunities around the basket for him, but also for teammates. Dalton Connect I think has natural playmaking ability, so I do think the personnel change helps with that. The mindset appears to be a little different too.
Well, and in the ball screen offense, I think he's learning that you can play inside out. You can create post-up opportunities by getting ball screens and then getting guys into the paint as opposed to having to be a down screen, and it's more plotting your offensive long. The spacing and the speed of which our offense, because he still does want to play inside out. Don't get it twisted. That is his DNA. But he's doing it differently.
It also doesn't appear that you let somebody get by you once and you're immediately to the bench. Okay. It seems like he's being a little bit more. He just seems to me, and maybe I'll be changing my tune when they're scoring 50 points in the next couple of weeks, but it seems to me that he's more willing and realizes I've got to let these guys off the leash a little bit. It just seems like a different attitude they're playing with over there. Maybe it's just different people, but it just seems like a little bit more Well, example, last year you had a kid comes in who's an all-star. He's scared to hit a layup at the end of the game. He's like, what do I need to do with this? In high school, he wouldn't have done that. At Vanderbilt, he freezes. I think that's because he knows, what does Rick want me to do? What does Rick want me to do? I don't know. They seem to be playing with a little different energy over there.
I think it's a lot to do with there's an older crew there. Vescovy,
James
Ziegler,
back,
yeah, so they've built more of a trust from him. So I think that could have a lot to do with
But
it.
it also sounded like he had challenged player after player after player in lengthy
Yes.
one-on-one meetings, especially at Duke. I think you can play better. I think you're a lot better than what you even realize. We need you to do more. Maybe that's why he kept him in there. I don't know. But he challenged him, and when he go out there and perform, I guess he's more tempted to leave him in.
Maybe. It just seems to me that there's, and maybe it's just because they're scoring more. Maybe 8 points per game more makes me feel better about this team. But it just seems to me that the stifling cloud that was over this team's kind of been released. It just seems to be a
Yeah.
team that's having a little bit more fun out there. But when we come back, we're going to talk about this team. Chris Beard says it's the Final Four capable team. All right, what's it going to take to get there? What is the one most important factor that either A, they need to continue moving forward, or B, they got to fix? Come on back on the Sports Source, we'll tell you.